Imagine you've just upgraded to a massive 8K TV and you're staring at that empty space where your old stereo used to sit, wondering if you really need a full-blown AV receiver or if a simple soundbar will do. You're not alone. I've talked to a lot of friends who are caught between the hype of Dolby Atmos and the fear of spending a few $100s on gear that ends up collecting dust. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The question is whether the Sony STRAZ1000ES can actually turn that living room setup into a home theater you'll use every night, or if it's just another pricey box that sounds great on paper but falls short when you actually press play. First off, let's talk about the kind of system this receiver is built for. Sony designed the STRAZ1000ES as a premium 7.2-channel hub that can handle 8K video, Dolby Atmos, and DTS. That makes it a natural fit for anyone who already has or plans to get a projector or a large 4K per 8K TV, a set of ceiling-mounted speakers for height channels, and a desire to stream services like Netflix, Disney Plus or Spotify without juggling multiple devices. If you're the type who enjoys watching blockbuster movies and wants that overhead rain feel in a thriller, this is the kind of gear that can actually deliver it. On the other hand, if your entertainment space is a small apartment with a soundbar and a couple of bookshelf speakers, you'll probably find the STRAZ1000ES to be overkill, both in price and in the amount of wiring and calibration work it demands. One of the first practical strengths I noticed is how the receiver handles video pass-through. With HDMI 2.1 support, you get 8K at 60 Hz and 4K at 120 Hz, which means you can hook up the latest gaming consoles and still have room for future-proofing. In real life, I connected a PlayStation 5, a Roku Ultra, and a Blu-ray player, and the video never dropped a frame even when I switched from a 4K HDR game to a 1080p movie. The receiver also negotiates HDR formats automatically, so you don't have to manually select Dolby Vision or HDR10 each time, it just works. That's a real convenience because the alternative is constantly diving into the TV's picture settings and fighting for the right mode. Audio-wise, the Digital Cinema Auto Calibration 9 is the part that actually makes a difference when you're installing a 7.2 system. The microphone that comes with the box sits on a coffee table, you run through a short test tone, and the receiver maps out the room's acoustics, adjusting speaker levels, distance, and even the crossover for the subwoofer. In a mid-sized living room I tested, the calibration turned a fairly uneven speaker layout into a balanced soundstage where dialogue stayed centered and the Atmos effects felt anchored overhead rather than just a vague wash. That's a step up from the manual tonebitone adjustments you see on cheaper receivers, where most users never get past the basic volume knobs. However, there are hidden trade-offs that become apparent after you've set everything up. The receiver's power rating 100 W per channel into 8 at 1 kHz with less than 1% THD sounds respectable, but in practice you'll notice the difference mainly when you push the system hard with a dynamic action movie or a bass-heavy concert recording. The output is solid, but it's not the kind of headroom you'd expect from a dedicated 2-channel audiophile amp. If you're primarily listening to music through stereo speakers, you might feel a little constrained compared to a dedicated music-focused receiver that delivers cleaner low-frequency control. Connectivity is another area where Sony tries to cover all bases. You get 6 HDMI inputs, 2 HDMI outputs, one of them ARC/eARC enabled, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Chromecast built-in, and even Spotify Connect. For most users, the biggest win is being able to stream directly from a phone or tablet without an extra dongle. I tested Spotify Connect while the TV was playing a 4K movie, and the audio switched seamlessly to the receiver without any noticeable latency. That said, the Bluetooth implementation is limited to the SBC codec, so you won't get the higher fidelity of aptX or LDAC. If you're a Bluetooth audiophile, that's a minor annoyance, but for casual streaming it's fine. One practical weakness that shows up in day-to-day use is the user interface. Sony's on-screen menus are dense, and while the remote has a dedicated home theater button, digging into the advanced settings for things like speaker distance or HMISET can feel like navigating a maze. The companion app on iOS and Android is more intuitive, but you still need to spend a few minutes learning where the auto calibration button lives. For a tech-savvy user, this isn't a big deal, but if you want a plug-and-play experience, you'll need to be patient during the first few weeks. Another subtle point is the integration with Sonos. Sony advertises that the STRAZ1000ES can work with Sonos speakers, allowing you to blend a traditional surround setup with wireless rear channels. In practice, the integration works, but